السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Welcome to another session on the parables of the Quran. Yesterday we began the parable in Surah Al-Ra'd, verse 17, so chapter 13, verse 17. And I mentioned that really this parable has two things going on. The first was the water element of it, and I explained that, and today we will look at and analyze the second part of this parable, and that is the fire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِمَّا يُوقِدُونَ عَلَيْهِ فِي النَّارِ ابْتِغَاءَ حِلْيَةٍ أَوْ مَتَاعٍ زَبَدٌ مِثْلُهُ. And what we use, or what is used to so what is, and from that which they heat in fire. There you go. So what is put into fire, that's what it's saying here, for the sake of making hilya, which is jewelry, aw mata', or monetary possessions, adornments, utensils, whatever it is. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He's referring to blacksmithing here. A blacksmith will have an element, a piece of gold, a piece of silver, bronze, steel, whatever it is, and these elements are mined from the earth, right? And when they are mined from the earth, it contains elements that are foreign to that particular element that is sought. So you have a nugget of gold, for example, and when it's mined, there will be dirt on it, there's dust, other elements from the dirt, whatever it is. So that isn't pure gold. It's pure gold that is mixed with other elements, and thus those other elements need to be removed. The blacksmith, there's a process that they put the element through in order to purify it from those foreign elements. And that is, they place it in very, very intense heat to where the element melts, and as it melts, those foreign elements dissolve. So the gold is able to endure the intense amount of heat. It does melt, right? It does melt, but the other elements, the foreign elements, aren't able to endure that amount of heat, and therefore they dissolve and they disappear. And what's left is that gold, only the gold, only that element that is sought. So that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here. So you have the element of fire, you have the variable of fire, and then you have the variable of an earthly element. Let's just use gold for the sake of making this a little bit more cohesive. And then you have the element of zabadun mithlu, foam like it, meaning like the foam that was mentioned in water, that's in the water, you also have the foam that's on the element. Now we can start looking at these variables and see what they are analogous to. Fire, we spoke about this in Surah Al-Baqarah, that fire has various features. It has the feature of light, so it provides light. Back in the day, torches, lamps, lanterns, they would be fueled, with a certain oil, and then a small fire or a fire would be used to light the area. That's how it was back in the day. In fact, in the Prophet ﷺ's masjid during his time, that's how it was. You'd have these torches that are on the walls of the masjid, and they would light it on fire during the night time so that people can see what's going on while they are in the masjid. And we know that because there was an individual who would do that, and when he did it, he would put certain incendants in the fire, like what we call today bakhur, or those fragrances, like those sticks that burn. So you'd put them in these torches so that they burn a little bit and give a nice smell to the masjid. So fire, you have the element of the attribute of the feature of light, and then fire is also very hot, right? The feature of heat, and heat is something that's discomforting. It's good, but it's discomforting, and too much heat can really, really damage the individual. So you have those two elements there. Likewise, fire is very quick. If you ever stare at a fire, like a campfire, you find that it's moving very quickly. right? And for that reason, jinn, who were created from a smokeless flame, their physical capabilities are a lot stronger and more enhanced than humans, because it goes back to their original where they're created, or what they're created from. So like fire is very fast, and it could change it the way its physical shape. Likewise, jinn can do the same thing, but that's a different topic. So you have those three features of a fire, which is very important to remember, as I will mention in a moment what this is analogous to. So actually, I'll say it right now. So fire here is analogous to fitna, to what's called a fitna. Now this is a common word, most people have probably heard this. A fitna is a trial, a test, a tribulation. And like fire, a tribulation has similar features. So that process that I mentioned, that the blacksmith puts the element through, that is actually linguistically in Arabic called a fitna. So when a blacksmith does a fitna to a nugget of gold, essentially it's putting it through that process of purifying it from those foreign elements, so that it comes out as a pure element or pure gold. So this fire is analogous to a fitna. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts people through fitnas. Why? To remove those impurities. So like the previous yesterday's topic on the water, how revelation comes and it purifies the spiritual deficiencies, likewise fire, a fitna, comes and purifies those deficiencies as well. And I'll get to what the difference is towards the end, inshallah. Hopefully I remember. So you have a fitna has similar features as fire does. Fitna does provide a person light by giving them insight. Fitna teaches us what life is. It gives us experience in life, and that experience later on becomes wisdom, where we can benefit other people. Likewise, a fitna is like fire in that it's hot, it's heat, it's discomforting, we don't like it, right? But like the heat purifies the gold, the fitna is also purifying the individual. So when a person endures a fitna from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is quite normal to feel that discomfort, right? It is normal to feel that pain. And the Prophet ﷺ says, "As-sabru diya." Patience is this light called diya. Now, diya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this word to describe the light to describe the sun. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Ja'ala al-qamara nuran, ja'ala ash-shamsa diya'an wal-qamara nura." Allah made the sun a form of diya and the moon as nur. So the light that's emitted from the moon is called nur. It's a pure light. You can look at it directly. It doesn't provide heat. It just provides light. Right? It gives us the ability to maneuver more effectively and safely in a dark night. Whereas the sun, it provides light but also provides heat, and that heat can sometimes be discomforting. So the Prophet ﷺ describes patience not as nur but as diya, because patience is not simply the ability to look beyond the hardship and recognize that there is a greater goal and a greater benefit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing us towards, but also it has that heat element. Being patient burns the heart. Being patient discomforts the heart. So likewise, a fitna does the same thing for an individual. So it's quite normal. Someone feeling distressed or discomforted by a particular situation that they perceive to be a fitna, a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's not an indication of weak iman, right? But rather, are we willing to endure it? Are we willing to be patient, have sabr, in dealing with it or not? That is the indicator of iman. Is this going to better me or not? Is this going to, like the element, is it going to purify me from spiritual deficiencies and leave my heart purer in gold, like pure gold? So that is the analogy in when it comes to fire. And then you have the hilya, the al-mata'. You have the jewelry and monetary possessions. So when a person melts gold, puts in the fire, they melt the gold, and then they form it into a different formation, a sword, a shield, utensils, right? Into other things that is used and beneficial, jewelry, right? They use it for jewelry. So these two things are analogous to what's beneficial to us and what beautifies us. So like fire is necessary for providing us with beauty and valuable possessions, likewise fitna, going through a test, also does the same thing for us if we react positively to that fitna. After a fitna, the person comes out, like after coming out of a shower, they're shiny, they smell nice, their hair is clean, everything is clean, right? After a fitna, the person, if they reacted positively to that fitna, they come out beautified, more valuable. So when a nugget of gold that hasn't been purified yet will have, let's say, value of 10, right? But after the process of purification, putting in the fire, after the process of fitna, it's now valued at 100, right? A gram, let's say. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Likewise, the Muslim, the believer, when they go through a fitna, they enter it at value 10 and they exit it at a much higher value, and that depends on the positivity and the optimism that we have in enduring that patience and the trust that we have in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we can come out at 15, or we can come out at 1 million, depending on our ability. So for example, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the context of Surah Al-Ahzab, the battle of Al-Khandaq, the battle of the trench, that was a very, very difficult time for the companions and the Prophet ﷺ. They were being sieged by an army so large that in Arab history, or the Gulf's history, it had yet to be produced. And they were surrounded from all sides. The Jews living there, word got to the Muslims that they were ready to betray them and backstab them. They were very hungry. Weather conditions weren't exactly the best. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them. وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرَ وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ. Right? هُنَالِكَ ابْتُلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَزُلْزِلُوا زِلْزَالًا شَدِيدًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the companions, some of them, not all of them, but nonetheless they are companions, people of Iman and strong Iman. Allah describes them as if their hearts are in their throats. And their Iman started to shake, and it felt like the world was shaking under them, right? The lack of stability. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that, but also He describes the following. He says the following in the same context. مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. Among the believers are men, Allah praising them, that they made an oath to Allah and they fulfilled it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is honoring them for that. And He also says that وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قَالُوا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَصَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He quotes the believers saying that this is what Allah and His Messenger promised us. Right? So they had that mental preparedness. And it's very important, right? It's very important that as parents, as siblings, as friends, we put enough effort to raise that awareness that people are tested. Life is sometimes rough, so that when the test begins or when it comes, the person is at least mentally prepared to understand and recognize that sometimes this happens, right? And that does go a very long way in easing some of that stress. At least it helps them process the situation. But someone who thinks life is all fun and dandy and everything is a-okay and nothing bad can happen to me or someone I know, and when something does happen, right, it's very, very difficult for them to process it, right? Let's see here. Okay, so going back. Sorry, I was a little distracted by Facebook. So the video isn't playing for some reason, whatever. Okay, going back. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the verse is describing the companions as they're saying, Allah and His Messenger has spoken the truth. They prepared us mentally that things like this are going to happen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned something very interesting. He said because of that, because of the situation, it increased them in submission to Allah and iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a fitna can do that for us. And it did that for the companions. So no doubt the Battle of the Trench was a major fitna for the companions, right? But at the end, afterwards, it just increased them in their nearness to Allah and their iman, their level of iman. So that's the idea, that's the goal. So fitna for a believer should be seen as something positive, because either they are a obedient Muslim who doesn't have major sins in their record that needs purification, and therefore a fitna is something that is going to boost their knowledge of who Allah is, what iman is. It's going to further root iman in their hearts, right? So see in the positive light. If the person is not as practicing, not as obedient, they have sins, they have many shortcomings, then fitna is meant to serve as a reminder and a purification for them, so they don't have to deal with that in the next life. So that's the element of the hilya and the mata', the jewelry and the possessions, monetary possessions. And then you have the zabad, the foam, which we know to be as the spiritual deficiencies in the heart, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is purifying that in order to unveil the individual or remove those barriers and those bars that are hindering the person's ability to engage Allah and benefit the most in this life and the next life. Now, skipping to the end of the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And as for what benefits people, it remains on earth. So this is going back to the elements. You have a nugget of gold, and it's mixed with various elements. You have the element of gold, you have the element of dirt, and in that dirt is different types of elements, etc. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says after the process of fire, what happens is what is beneficial to mankind remains, and what is not beneficial is removed. Now, for the individual, we kind of elaborated that. A fitna comes and it teaches the person, gives them insight, wisdom, purifies them from the spiritual deficiencies that are lingering in their heart. Now, it's also beneficial to look at the idea at a more macro level. When a fitna afflicts the entire nation or the world or the Muslims in general, it also serves the same purpose. What's harmful to human beings, you find that a fitna attacks that one harmful element of human life or human practices, lifestyles, and people start to change. So take, for example, coronavirus, right? This COVID situation. Most people are reluctant and unwilling to get food from restaurants from out. And you have all these commercials now that are, kind of begging people in a nice way to come and say, hey, we're safe, where everything is clean, sanitized, our employees are wearing masks, come and eat from our place. Don't worry about it. You'll be okay, right? But most people are still too afraid and suspicious, and they're just not willing to take the risk. And as a result, people have to resort now to cooking at home. And when you go to the supermarkets, try and find yeast that's used to make bread. Please, if anyone finds, please grab a bunch for me, because I've been looking for the past month. I can't find yeast. Flour is almost always gone. Sugar, right? A lot of these core ingredients or these essential ingredients to cooking are gone, because people want to just say, I'll just cook at home. Now, perhaps, and there's nothing wrong with eating at restaurants, nothing haram in that or unmoral, but we have to acknowledge that it's not as healthy. And someone who is always and constantly eating from outside, it can cause health problems. It's very fatty. It's not as clean. The quality of the meats that are used are pretty poor, and you have those problems. So I don't know what's wrong with the sound. I don't know if it's just you. or if it's the internet, I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue. I'm almost done anyway. What was I saying? So perhaps what this fitna that we're currently going to will help people go back to eating at home. And perhaps there are other benefits to that, such as more family time, dinner at the table, better health, people realizing that there are alternatives to the lifestyle that we were living before, saves a ton of money because eating out, it costs a lot more than cooking at home. Sure, it takes a little bit more time, but perhaps that time that we now have to put in order to cook will help slow down our lives. You know, just things are going so fast. There's from one responsibility to another responsibility to a third responsibility, and perhaps this fitna is coming and kind of changing that to where it leaves what's beneficial and does away with that which is harmful to us. So because I'm getting some concerns in terms of, okay, sound is good on YouTube, so I'm sorry, on Facebook, but I don't know what's wrong on YouTube. Anyway, so that is the idea behind the fire. Now, what's going on with the fire? The fire is referring to a fitna, and the purpose of a fitna, a test, is to purify us and to make us better. Now, what is the difference between water and fire? The difference, I think, is pretty clear if you just think about it for a moment. In the first parable, the one we went over yesterday, water is coming down, and you have a very beautiful image, and the water works by itself to purify the individual, and there seems to be no discomfort. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying water falls down from the sky, rain falls down from the sky, but doesn't mention thunder, lightning, heavy storms, or that it's damaging in any way, just a normal standard rainfall. So the rain is all good, and it's providing the individual with good, and there are no elements of discomfort, pain, endurance, right? Enduring a situation, patience, any of that. So that's contrary to the fire example. So what you find is that people have two ways that they can purify themselves, that they can spiritually enhance themselves, that they can better themselves. You have the route of seeking that purification and that betterment, enrichment, and that is through revelation. Through revelation, when we seek revelation, when we seek to understand and learn about revelation, when we put time and effort and sacrifice some of our comforts or some of our free time and dedicate that to seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, learning about the Quran, reading a book of tafsir, listening to a lecture, you find that those lectures and all the information is now entering the heart and purifying the heart. Right? Thus the person is active or proactively bettering themselves, right, in a manner that is comforting and or comfortable and doesn't require that intense situation, that tense endurance. Contrary to the second parable, or the second example, the fire parable here, where many people are really, they're lazy in this regard. And I'm going to use the word lazy because, to be honest, the Quran is a treasure, and it's sad that we as Muslims take it so for granted, that we are more willing, and it's easier for us to watch a silly movie for 2 or 3 hours than it is for us to learn a little bit about Allah and His Messenger, about the next life, to read the Quran. I understand that sometimes we need to unwind and relax, and that's definitely part of taking care of our well-being, which the Prophet ﷺ told us to do. But at the same time, let's be honest, how many people put just a small amount of effort in learning about who Allah is and how they can become a better Muslim, right? It's very, very, it's rare these days, unfortunately. Out of 500, 600,000 Muslims in SoCal, right? How many regularly attend the masjid and take advantage of the massive amount of reward that comes with going to the masjid? And after the salah, for example, Isha prayer, Fajr prayer, there's a khatira, a nightly reflection, a morning reflection, to help boost our iman and strengthen our iman, to teach us a little bit. So most people require or are in need of that fire element, that fitna, in order to purify themselves before they go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so they don't have to be accountable for that, or have to endure that in the next life rather than this life. And what people go through in the next life is uncomparable. Right? There's no ratio to compare the hardships of the next life in comparison to this life. So might as well be this life than the next life. But I hope this parable encourages us to kind of understand our two options here. Right? We are servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will bring us back to Him one way or another. If you willingly do that, then know that the reward of that submission, that willingness, is limitless. But if people aren't willing, or too lazy, or too distracted by their own worldly and monetary pursuits, then know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring about that fire to remind people of their purpose in life, of their responsibilities, so that they can come back to Allah and continue to live their life in a better manner and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a higher status. And like that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents these examples, these parables to us. So I hope that we can kind of make a resolution within us, and I will begin with myself, because I have many major shortcomings. There's much time that I waste, and much more efforts that I could put in, much more organization that I can kind of really think about and organize my time so that I can utilize every second, and therefore be like the example of the water, where I am nourishing my iman in a way that's comforting, beautiful, and pleasing, so that my iman doesn't need to be nourished by fire. Now, of course, everyone will be tested. Everyone. If the companions were tested with major testing, right, then we can expect that for ourselves. But perhaps by seeking the path of the water, we can mitigate the amount and severity, or at least prepare ourselves, so that when a fitna comes, we have much equipment that we can use, many tools that we can use to endure that challenge and overcome it. So that is the parable of Surah Ar-Ra'd. So I hope it's of benefit to you, and I hope I was able to present it in with some insights and some spiritual benefits. So if not, then I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to overlook my shortcomings, and if any good has come to you through this, then it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His blessings and mercy upon us. So I will stop with that. Tomorrow the parable is in Surah Ibrahim, the parable of the tree, which is also another very beautiful parable. So please do join, spread the word, invite other people. And Ramadan, inshallah, you are enjoying Ramadan and continue to enjoy Ramadan as it goes by very quickly. If anyone has any questions, then please do ask. I'll give it a moment, and then inshallah I will answer if anyone has a question. وإياكم يا رب. Okay, inshallah, I will see you all tonight at 9:30 or tomorrow at 4. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.